In just the last few months, India's space program has been on an absolute tear. We're seeing them pull off incredible new technologies, kick off some seriously ambitious missions, and really just chart a bold new path for the future. So let's get right into this amazing story of India's rise in space. Right off the bat, India has pulled off a technological feat so difficult, only a handful of other countries have ever done it. And this one achievement completely changes the game for what's possible for them in space. So what exactly was it? They cracked space docking. With the SpaceX mission, ISRO basically taught two satellites how to find each other, link up, and then separate, all while hurtling around the Earth at incredible speeds. Now, this isn't just some cool tech demo. This is the key that unlocks a whole new era. It's what you need to build a space station, to refuel satellites, or even to clean up dangerous junk floating around in orbit. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with that giant leap, the SpaceX mission. Then we'll look at ISRO's other big projects. After that, we'll see how they're building for the long haul, check out where India fits into the new global space race, and finally, we'll look at what's just over the horizon. Okay, let's kick things off with that groundbreaking SpaceX mission. This is really where India just leveled up its space game in a major way. This number really says it all, 4. Before India did it, only 3 other nations, the US, Russia, and China, had pulled this off. This achievement puts India's space agency, ISRO, firmly in the top tier of space powers on the planet. Okay, so just think about how hard this is. It's like trying to thread a needle from 20 kilometers away, except both the needle and your thread are moving at thousands of kilometers per hour. That's pretty much what ISRO did here. The Chaser satellite had to perform these unbelievably precise moves to close that gap, gently connect with the target, and then back away cleanly. It's just a stunning piece of engineering. But here's the thing. SpaceX wasn't just a one-off success. It's actually part of a much bigger strategy by ISRO to really push the boundaries of science and exploration all across the solar system. And, some of the most exciting work is happening when they team up with other giants. Take the NISAR satellite, for example. This is a massive joint project between India's ISRO and America's NASA. What's really incredible about NISAR is just the sheer scale of its ambition. This isn't just about snapping pretty pictures of Earth. By combining the powers of both space agencies' radar technology, it's going to create the most detailed maps of our planet's surface ever. This means scientists can track tiny, millimeter-level changes in glaciers, forests, and even the ground itself. That kind of data is absolutely vital for understanding climate change and managing natural disasters. At the same time, looking away from Earth, ISRO's first-ever solar observatory, Aditya L1, is already a huge success. It just sent back the first super detailed images of the very core of a solar flare as it was erupting. This gives scientists a front-row seat to the sun's most powerful explosions, which helps us get way better at predicting space weather that can mess with our satellites and power grids right here on Earth. And of course, we have to talk about the moon. The Chandrayaan program is a perfect example of a clear step-by-step strategy. It started with confirming water. Then came the historic South Pole landing, and now a 5th mission has been approved. See how each step builds on the last one? It's all paving the way for bigger things, like bringing a piece of the moon back to Earth and, one day, landing an Indian astronaut on the lunar surface. But with all this incredible success, it's easy to forget that space is, hard. It's a high-risk, high-reward game. So does everything always go perfectly? In an environment as unforgiving as space, the answer is almost never yes. Yeah, setbacks are absolutely part of the journey when you're pushing the envelope. Just recently, the NBSO-2 navigation satellite launched perfectly, but then a thruster had an issue, which meant it couldn't do that final burn to get into its proper orbit. So while it didn't achieve its main goal, every single one of these incidents provides priceless data that makes the next mission stronger. And that whole idea of learning and building for the next attempt brings us to the long-term vision. These individual missions are all pieces of a much bigger puzzle. Let's look at the groundwork India is laying right now to secure its place in space for decades to come. And this is exactly where that SpaceX docking technology we talked about becomes so important. India has laid out this incredibly ambitious roadmap to build its very own space station, the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. The first piece is set to launch in 2028, and they're aiming to have the whole thing operational by 2035. And all of that is a stepping stone to the ultimate goal, landing an Indian on the moon by 2040.
Now, if you want to have that kind of launch schedule, you've got to have the infrastructure on the ground to handle it. India's 2 launch pads are getting pretty busy, so the government has approved a massive investment, about 4,000 crore rupees, or around 500 million US dollars, for a third launch pad, built specifically for the next generation of rockets.
And what's so special about those next-gen rockets? Well, it really comes down to the engines. The big shift is to semi-cryogenic technology. See, the older cryogenic engines are super efficient, but they use liquid hydrogen, which is incredibly cold and a real headache to work with. The new engine uses refined kerosene. Think of it as super high-grade jet fuel, which is way easier to handle, and will let their rockets lift even bigger and heavier things into orbit.
Okay, let's zoom out a little. None of this is happening in a bubble. India's rise is part of this huge, dramatic shift in the global space scene, and a lot of it is being driven by private companies.
The private space revolution has officially landed in India. Elon Musk's Starlink just got a license to offer its satellite internet service. That's a huge global player entering the Indian market.
And they're not the only ones. Amazon is right there with them, planning its own massive satellite internet system called Project Cooper. We're talking about a constellation of over 3,000 satellites.
But this isn't just about foreign companies coming in. India's own private space companies are taking off. For instance, a company called Dhruva Space is planning its first commercial mission by basically buying a ticket to ride on a SpaceX rocket. This just shows you how interconnected the new global space economy really is. So, after all this incredible progress, what's the next great frontier for India? Well, the answer is pretty clear. It's sending its own astronauts, or Vyomanauts, into space. Everything is building towards this, the Gaganyaan mission. The first big uncrewed test flight is planned for later this year. And get this, it's going to carry Vyomitra, a really sophisticated humanoid robot, to test all the life support systems and make sure everything is safe. The ultimate goal, of course, is to launch a crew of 3 astronauts into orbit, which would make India only the 4th country in history to achieve human spaceflight on its own.
So when you look at it all, from mastering these complex maneuvers in orbit to planning a space station to getting ready to send people into space, it's clear India is quickly becoming a true heavyweight in the spacefaring world. So as we all continue to reach for the stars, the real question is no longer if India will be a major player, but what pivotal role it's going to play in writing humanity's next chapter.